Alright, what's up everybody? Welcome back to Road to 18-inch arms. So, with this one, I don't actually have a whole ton planned. I obviously still want to show all my training regardless of the circumstances, but essentially the basement just keeps on flooding. It's an absurd amount of rain that we're having this year, so everything's getting thrown out of whack, but I'm still being as dialed in as I possibly can with my training, even if it means having to use different equipment or different variations at a commercial gym. So I'm doing the best I can, effort's still there and everything, but it's not ideal circumstances, and psychologically it's tough too. It's tough to stay motivated when my gym is half underwater and I have to travel to go to the gym every single day, and it's just a little bit tougher mentally, and I think everybody goes through that. So this isn't really like a poor me thing, it's just situation of dealing with the reality of life, and I'm going to keep pushing through it even if it's not perfect. So what you saw at first in this video for the first 5 seconds is actually a arm measurement chart, well, an arm measurement chart to be proper grammatically with that, inspired by our boy Oscar. So Oscar Swider, he has tracked his arm training, or more so his arm measurements, at least in the last few months especially. So I took that inspiration from him to use my chart. Essentially, the reason I'm doing it now is because I have officially secured 17 3/4 regardless of the circumstance. It might be a smidge below, but this is like, even if I trained legs but the day before and sweat a ton and don't eat properly, don't eat enough, or don't eat many carbs or sodium, like, and wake up kind of dehydrated and like quote unquote flat, even if I am like basically a little bit depleted or whatever you want to call it, my arms are still 17 3/4. So I've secured that measurement, and now this is the point where on a good day where maybe I trained arms the day before and there's still a little bit of a pump, not a pump going on, but maybe a little more glycogen or something, or maybe I did eat a little bit more than usual, more carbs and sodium. This is a point where on a good day I could actually be at 18-inch arms relatively soon. So I don't want to run the risk of just measuring once every couple weeks and risk that time being a bad day, where they're a little bit smaller artificially, or just miss the day when I can tell people that I have 18-inch arms, because that's what the whole series is about. So why not test that a little bit more frequently now that I'm pretty much on that kind of final stretch here. And that's not to say it's going to be happening soon. Who knows? This stage of bodybuilding isn't really something that necessarily goes quickly. It could take me a few weeks, few months. It could take me a year. Who knows? With that said, my body weight, the last kind of high weight that I was trending towards was about 202. I've lost a little bit since then, just with diet and consistency, and mostly just a little bit of a lack of focus on diet. So I'm basically averaging right at 200 now. So my arms have maintained size, even though my body weight's down a hair. It's only 2 pounds roughly, so it's not the end of the world, and that won't make a huge difference. But it is promising that if they're the same size now and my body weight's down a hair, that's a good thing, because it means that I didn't lose size just from losing a little bit of fat. So arms, if anything, have maintained or maybe even grown a hair. So we'll see how that keeps going. But other than that, I don't have a whole ton to cover regarding the arm measurements. Of course, I do plan on doing that moving forwards, showing the chart each week just to catch you up on the previous 7 days of arm measurements. And an exciting announcement from Barbell Apparel: the Adapt joggers have officially dropped. I've been testing them out for a while now, wearing them for basically all of my training sessions. You'll see me wearing them throughout this video too. These things are the real deal. They fit right, they're super high quality, they have all the bells and whistles without going overkill. It's designed for tough workouts, anything from regular training that we do in the gym to outside hiking and other outdoor activities and whatnot. It has everything you could ever need. So when you add a piece like this to your wardrobe, not only is it extremely versatile, but it's also backed by a lifetime guarantee. So if you want to see these joggers or anything else in my collection, you can click the link in the description. To get more into the training stuff here, I've had quite a few questions on the Smith JM press. I've had a few people say that I'm not doing it the way that JM Blakely basically invented them as, and I do that on purpose actually. So essentially what the JM press is, it's a hybrid between a very close grip bench press and a skull crusher. And of course, it's a spectrum where no matter what technique you use, it will fall somewhere on that spectrum. It's just about which lift you're biasing a little bit more. The way that I do these, it's actually basically a perfect happy medium. I don't let my elbows go higher than my wrists at peak resistance, aka at the bottom of the lift. but I also don't let my elbows go below my shoulders, which would be more of a press, versus if the elbows are above the wrists at the bottom, that's more of an extension or a skull crush or whatever you want to call it. So if you do want to go for that perfect hybrid, which is exactly what I do and recommend and have used to get the biggest triceps that I've ever had, with this, you want to have your elbow above your shoulder but below your wrist at the bottom. Usually, and this is going to be individual because everybody has different skeletal structures and limb lengths, it's a good idea to start the lift off by aiming the bar path directly to the chin. This works for most people. Depending on if your arms are a little bit longer or shorter, you might have to go a little bit below the chin, maybe all the way down to the clavicles. And some people might have to go closer to mouth, maybe even right below the nose, level with the bar path. So I know for myself, each bar path does feel pretty good, but for myself to get that perfect hybrid technique that I want to use, it really is just going to be bring the bar directly to my chin, and that's how I get that insanely deep arm bend. And getting this deep arm bend isn't something that can necessarily be replicated with another lift. The reason why I'm so big on Smith JM presses is because they're unique by placing the most tension in that crazy stretch with that massive range of motion. And you can do this, like, theoretically on paper. You can do this on something like a push down, but the resistance is at its least amount when you're doing it on something like a push down because of where the cable origin is coming from. So the JM press is incredibly unique in that way. And if you just look at how people train their triceps, generally speaking, across the board, in the vast majority of cases, we very rarely get high tension in that stretch position, really beyond 90 degrees. So I don't think it's a coincidence that my triceps, which were arguably my biggest genetic weak spot heading into lifting and for the first handful of years of my lifting career, I don't think it's a coincidence that my triceps finally started growing once I started doing this movement. So another thing for the biceps, I don't just want to leave it at the triceps today. Biceps, I don't think it's a coincidence that preacher curls and machine preacher curls are the secret to growing my arms. I've spent a lot of time promoting preacher curls on this channel, so I don't think I want to spend a whole ton of time talking about the benefits of preacher curls because you can find that in basically most of my videos. But I did want to talk about machine preacher curls real quick. So one of the perks of a preacher curl with an easy bar is you have the resistance profile optimized, in my opinion. So with this, it's going to be hardest at the bottom and easier as you get to the top when the muscle shortens. Not only does this feel more natural, in my opinion, and of the opinions of most people, but it's arguably better for muscle growth. And I think we're seeing more, not just anecdote, but more science showing that too. So with the machine preacher curl, one warning I have against this is you might say, oh, it doesn't matter, free weight or machine, it's the same thing. They're actually quite different. So the problem with the machine preacher curls, it removes that lengthened biased resistance profile and turns it into a flat resistance profile, unless the machine has a fancy cam on it, like the one that I'm using does, which is the Arsenal machine. The problem is most machines don't actually have that. The one I am using is very fancy, and I'm very lucky I get to use it at this commercial gym, but the vast majority of machine preacher curls don't have that set up. So if you do have access to one of those, I would say cool. It can replace a preacher curl if you prefer this. I'd argue they're mostly equal for hypertrophy at least. But if you just have a regular one that has a flat resistance profile, I would always opt for the regular preacher curl if possible. So with that being said, that's all I got for today. If you guys have any questions or anything you want to see or hear me talk about in the next video, let me know. I'll see you guys then.